sumiklab sa Heathrow Airport sa UK.
Kasalukuyang nakararanas ng power outage ng paliparan dahil sa sunog. Ang mga susunod na kaganapan ating abangan maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Ricky Mathay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Biyernes.
Pilipinas at India pinaplano na ang pagbisita ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sa New Delhi.
Malacanang humiling sa House Tri-Committee na magkaroon ng regulasyon sa social media kontra fake news.
North Korea nagpaputok ng pinakabagong anti-aircraft missile.
Pangulong Donald Trump nilagdaan ng panukalang batas na buwagin ang US Department of Education.
At mga air travel sa Indonesia na udlot dahil sa pagputok ng Mount Lewotowey. Laki-laki.
Pinaplano ng Pilipinas ang posibleng pagbisita ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ngayong taon sa India upang ipagdiwang ang 75th anniversary ng diplomatic relations ng dalawang bansa.
Ayon kay Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo, inaasang sa pagbisitang ito maraming mga kasunduan ang malalagdaan sa pagitan ng New Delhi at ng Manila. Napag-usapan na ito ni Secretary Manalo at Indian Minister of External Affairs, Jaishankar, sa isang pagpupulong ngayong linggo. Bagamat wala pa pong tiyak na detalye ng isang Pilipinas at ng India na palakasin ang kooperasyon sa maritime security, kabilang ang joint patrol exercises at mas pinigting na ugnayan ng Coast Guard para sa regional peace at laban sa piracy and trafficking. Noong November 16, 2024, ipinagdiwang ng dalawang bansa ang 75 years na matibay nilang ugnayan na makikita sa record high bilateral trade, rising foreign direct investment at bagong milestones in defense cooperation.
Kinumpirma ni Vice President Sara Duterte na pupunta ng The Hague sa the Netherlands ang kanyang inang si Elizabeth Zimmerman upang bisitahin ang dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Hindi man anya makapasok sa penitentiary institution ang kanyang ina, ay pupunta pa rin daw ito sa The Hague. Sinabi rin ng bise na plano niyang kunan ng permission to visit ang kanyang mga kapatid upang mabisita ang kanilang ama sa detention unit. Pero hindi anya siya sigurado kung mapapayagan sila na sabay-sabay na bumisita sa dating Pangulo. Gayunman ay ibibigay na anya niyang 3 oras na permit sa mga kapatid niya para makita ang kanilang amang magdiriwang ng ika-80 kaarawan.
Ipinaliwanag naman ni Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro na wala siyang personal na kaalaman kung sino-sino ang nagpaaresto kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Wala rin anya siyang personal na alam kung ano ang napag-usapan patungkol sa pag-aresto sa dating Pangulo para sa kasong Crimes Against Humanity sa International Criminal Court or ICC. Iginit din ni Castro na nangyari ang pag-aresto sa alinsunod sa batas.
Kung sino po ang nag-utos, wala po tayong personal knowledge dyan. Kung ano po ang napag-usapan, wala pa rin po tayong personal knowledge dyan.
Nang tanungin naman sa investigasyon ng isang Senate Committee on Foreign Relations na pinamumunuan ni Presidential Sister at Senator Amy Marcos, si DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, kung sino nga ba ang nagplano ng pag-aresto kay Duterte, ito ay mabilis ni mga tumanggi na siya ay kasama si Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr., DND Secretary Gilbert Teodoro at National Security Advisor Eduardo Año na nagplano umano. Kinwestiyon din ni Castro ang paggamit ng salitang mastermind. Dapat anya itong itama dahil parang negatibo ang tingin ng tao rito.
Wala namang mapakiyaw-kiyaw dun sa sinabi.
Yes, ma'am.
Patayin na muna natin. Pakaliwanag naman ang sabi ninyo, hindi ako mag-isa kahit ako ang kasama ng presidente nung nagsalita
Yes,
sa press con, hindi ako mag-isa ang nagplano. Isang grupo kami. Tapos pinangalanan mo.
No, ma'am.
Sinabi ninyo eh.
I state, ma'am, again, executive privilege, but ma'am,
Walang executive. Privilege kasi binunyag na ninyo sa TV.
I must state it very clear that there was no mastermind. We were discussing mainly about what the president's statements were in Hong Kong, and it was based all on that statement, ma'am.
May mastermind ba tayo nadinig? Kasi for us, it's medyo negative yung dating. Parang
Sino po
mafia
yung
dating.
nag-utos?
Samantala, nanindiga ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa kakayahan at integridad ng judiciary ng ating bansa. Sa kabila nito, naniniwala ang Iglesia ni Cristo na dapat sa Pilipinas litisin si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte at hindi sa ibang bansa. Narito po ang report ni Eden Santos.
Nagtitiwala ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa integridad at kakayahan ng hudikatura at mga hukom sa Pilipinas. Idiniin nito na gumagana ang sistema ng hustisya sa bansa. Naniniwala ang Iglesia na dapat sa Pilipinas litisin si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Ang posisyon ng Iglesia ni Cristo ay inihayag mismo ng tagapagsalita nito na si kapatid na Edwil Zabala sa programang Saganang Mamamayan ng NET25. Ayon kay kapatid na Zabala, dapat pairalin kung ano ang tama at kung ano ang nasa mga batas ng Pilipinas. Una rito, inaresto ng Philippine National Police Criminal Investigation and Detection Group si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte dahil sa kasong crime against humanity.
Huwag po itong pilipitin para umayon sa nais ng sinuman. Hindi po sumasang-ayon ng Iglesia sa anumang hakbangin na hindi naaayon sa mga batas ng ating bansa. Sapagkat ang batas po ang salalayang nagpapanatili ng kaayusan sa ating bansa. Kapag ang batas ay binaliwala, ay nagbubunga ito ng kaguluhan, hidwaan at kawalang hustisya. Alam niyo po iyan. Sino mang Pilipino o mamamayan ng ating bansa na may ginawang paglabag sa ating mga batas, dito dapat litisin sa ating bansa.
Dagdag pa niya na hindi dapat isuko ng gobyerno ang soberanya ng Pilipinas sa dayuhan.
Bakit po? Sapagkat gumagana naman ang sistema ng ating hustisya. Hindi po natin sinasabing wag litisin ang dating Pangulo sa mga iniaakusa laban sa kanya. Ang saganang amin po, nagtitiwala ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa integridad at kakayahan ng hudikatura para pagpasyahan ng ganitong bagay at usapin. Ang mga hukom natin ay may kakayahan po na gampanan ang kanilang tungkulin, na ipataw ang tamang hustisya at pairali ng katarungan sa lahat ng sandali. Kaya, hindi natin dapat isuko ang soberenya ng ating bansa sa iba.
Binigyang diin din ni kapatid na Zabala na ang hindi pakikinig ng mga namumuno sa gobyerno sa panawagan ng Iglesia sa isinagawang National Rally for Peace ay nagresulta ng kaguluhan sa bansa.
Nang mag-rally po ang Iglesia noong January 13, 2025, ang ipinanawagan po namin sa mga namiminuno sa ating bansa, at malamang ay naaalala niyo po ito, kapayapaan, pagkakaisa, at unahing asikasuhin ang problema ng ating bansa at mamamayan nito kaysa yung mga hakbanging magbubunga lamang ng awayan at hidwaan. Dahil alam naman ng marami po na ang mga ito pawang pamumulitika lamang. Ang nakakalungkot po ay yung panawagang yun ng Iglesia ni Cristo tila hindi pinakinggan ng mga kinaukulan. Kaya nga po, Kuya Jen, nangyari yung mga nangyayari ngayon.
Sinabi pa niya na nagdulot din ito ng pagkakabahabahagi hindi lang sa gobyerno, kundi maging sa mga mamamayan.
Hindi naman po natin may tatatwa ng sinuman. Matindi ang pagkakabahabahagi ngayon ng mga nasa gobyerno hanggang sa ating mga mamamayan. Hindi lamang tayong mga Pilipino ang nakakaalam na hindi tayo nagkakaisa. Ang nakakalungkot, maging ang mga taga-ibang bansang nagmamasid sa kaganapan po rito ngayon sa Pilipinas, alam na alam nila.
Eden Santos, formata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Dahil po sa pagkalat ng fake news, ay hiniling ni Presidential Communications Office Secretary J. Ruiz sa House Tri-Committee na i-regulate ang paggamit ng social media. Nagiging lugar na anya ito ng fake news na siyang sumisira sa lahat ng institusyon, pagkatao ng bawat individual at maging sa pambansang seguridad. Hinikayat ng kalihim na magkaisa ang tatlong sangay ng gobyerno mula ehekutibo, lehislatura at judikatura para maglatag ng regulasyon sa paggamit ng social media na hindi nasasagasaan ang freedom of expression.
It destroys the very fabric of our society, and we have to protect our children not only of fake news, but all these bad things that we see in this technology platform that we have. But more on the vloggers, we should concentrate a regulation on the platforms. The platforms like Meta, TikTok, YouTube are foreign platforms.
Sumang-ayon naman si Congressman Rodante Marcoleta dahil may personal siyang karanasan dahil nilait-lait siya ng mga social media vloggers noon. Inihalimbawa rin ni Marcoleta ang gold standard na inilabas ng Korte Suprema para sa mga public officials, lalo na sa usapin ng paghusga sa kanilang pagkatao at pagtupad ng tungkulin.
The conduct of public men, people in government, and how criticisms can be hurled against them and how should they respond to these criticisms. I think these are very important standards, Mr. Chair, in the wake of our desire to probably make laws in relation to free speech.
Nangako naman ng Kamara na tutugunan nito ang planong regulasyon sa paggamit ng social media kung hindi lang mapagtitibay ang regulasyon na ito ngayong 19th Congress ay magiging prioridad anila ito sa darating naman na 20th Congress. Samantala, asahan ng mga Filipino caregivers at iba pang migrant workers na sa susunod na 5 taon ay aabot na sa 10 milyong job vacancies sa buong mundo ang bubuksan. Ayon sa Department of Migrant Workers, nasa 10 million workers kasi ang kailangan ng global care economy pagsapit ng taong 2030. Sinabi ni Migrant Workers Undersecretary Patricia Caunan na pagdating sa healthcare sector, pangunahin ang mga Filipino caregiver, nurses o nursing assistants. Una nang sinabi ng ahensyang pinag-aaralan na nilang gawing healthcare workers ang mga Filipino household service workers, factory workers at maging ang mga biktima ng human trafficking.
Idineklara ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. na regular holiday ang April 1, 2025. Batay sa Proclamation No. 839 na ipinalabas kahapon, March 20, ang pagdedeklara ng holiday sa April 1 ay dahil sa Eid al-Fitr ng mga kababayan nating Muslim. Ayon sa Presidential Communications Office, ito ang naging rekomendasyon ng National Commission on Muslim Filipinos.
Matapos naman ang ilang linggong rollback sa presyo ng produktong petrolyo ay sasalubong naman sa susunod na linggo ang dagdag presyo sa mga ito. Batay po sa estimates ng Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, maaaring tumaas sa 60 sentimos hanggang piso ang presyo kada litro ng gasolina. 10 sentimos hanggang 50 sentimos naman ang dagdag sa presyo kada litro ng diesel, habang 10 sentimos hanggang 30 sentimos naman ang hike sa kerosene o gas. Ayon sa nakikita ng oil industry, may ambag ang lumalalang tensyon sa Middle East at ang paglulunsad ng airstrikes ng Estados Unidos sa rebeldeng Houthi sa paggalaw ng presyo ng oil products.
Susunod, 300 migranteng Venezuelan nakabalik na galing Mexico.
Mga guro sa Colorado nagprotesta kontra bawas pondo.
At Trump bubuwagin ang Department of Education sa Estados Unidos. Mga balitang yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Sagip Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta. unang sasabak para sagutin ang 25 tanong ng bayan. Ngayong Sabado na, alas 7 ng gabi. 25 tanong ng bayan, Senatorial Point of View.
Na-in love na ba kayo? Yung tipong Cloud9 feeling at napapakanta ng Mr. Dream Boy. Sigurado ako team song ito ng mga umiibig. At ang nagpasikat ng kantang yan, Cheryl Cruz ang ating makakasama ngayon. Bukod sa ganda ng boses at kinang ng kanyang bituin sa showbiz, marami na rin siyang gagawing revelation sa atin lang. Paano naman niya napangasawa ang kanyang bodyguard? Iniiyakan niya dahil kinukurot at pinanggigigilan ng kanyang fans. Yan at marami pang iba dito lang sa Corina Interviews ngayong Linggo, 6 p.m. sa NET25.
Ipinagmalaki ng North Korea ang pinakabagong anti-aircraft missile system nito. At mismong si Pyongyang leader Kim Jong-un ang nanguna sa pagpapaputok ng bagong armas na sinasabing tsak na maaasahan at kapaki-pakinabang sa oras ng labanan. Pinasalamatan din ni Kim ang isang grupo ng mga mananaliksik na siyang gumawa ng bago nilang missile. Ayon pa sa KRT News State Media ay sinisimulan na ang produksyon nito.
Kumilos sa mga partido ng oposisyon ng South Korea para maghain ng isang motion upang ma-impeach si Acting President Choi Sang-mok. Si Choi ang pumalit kay Prime Minister Han Duck-soo na na-impeach din ng Parliament bilang Acting President noong December 27 dahil naman sa hindi nito pag-aproba sa mga judges sa Constitutional Court. Sinabi na ilang political experts na nagalit umano ang oposisyon kay Choi dahil sa paulit-ulit na pag-veto nito sa mga panukalang batas at pagpigil sa pagtatalaga ng Constitutional Court judge na aprobado naman ng Assembly. Samantala, wala pa ring hatol ang korte ukol sa reklamong impeachment kay President Yoon Suk-yeol. Subalit, pansamantala itong nakalaya dahil kinansela ng korte ang arrest warrant ito para sa kasong insurrection. Patuloy naman ang mga protesta sa kalsada ng mga taga-suporta ni Yoon at ng mga taong humihiling na wag nang ibalik sa pwesto ang na-impeach na Pangulo.
Kinundina ng mga lider ng European Union ang muling pagsiklab ng kaguluhan sa Gaza.
The ceasefire in Gaza is holding but remains fragile. Thanks to the EU's border mission of Rafah, by 8th of March, over 3,500 people had crossed into Egypt, including over 2,000 people requiring medical treatment. Work is still ongoing. Too many civilians have been killed on both sides. It is critical that both sides uphold their commitments to international and humanitarian law and phase 2 talks succeed. It is imperative that the delivery of humanitarian aid is not politicized or conditional. Any and all blockades to delivery of aid at scale must be lifted. The EU has been a #1 provider of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people, both in Gaza and also in the West Bank. We intend to stay this course.
Sa nagdaang 3 araw ay inulan ng airstrikes ng Israel ang Gaza kung saan naabot na sa mahigit 500 katao ang nasawi. Ipinagtanggol ng Israel ang nasabing airstrike matapos na magmatigas ang Hamas na palayain ang mga hawak nilang bihag. Nanawagan din ng EU na dapat ay agad na bumalik sa pagpapatupad ng ceasefire deal, lalo na ang pagpapalaya ng mga bihag. Karamihan sa mga nasawing biktima ay mga sibilyan at mga bata, kung saan una na rin itong binatikos ng mga iba't ibang world leaders.
The EU calls for the respect of international law, international humanitarian law, and human rights in every context they are at risk or actively violated, be it in Gaza, Sudan, DRC, Myanmar, Haiti, or Ukraine. Yet, for 3 long years, we have been witnessing an illegal war of aggression aimed at destroying a member state of the United Nations. We support a future state of Palestine with Gaza as an integral part of it, and we will work with the international community in rebuilding Gaza.
Magkakaroon ng pagpupulong ang Russia at Ukraine sa susunod na linggo. Isasagawa ang pulong sa Saudi Arabia kung saan kasama rin ang kinatuwa ng Estados Unidos. Ang nasabing pulong ay kasunod ng pagsusulong ng US ukol sa ceasefire para tuluyan ng matapos ang mahigit sa 3 taong giyera sa dalawang bansa. Nauna rito ay tinawagan ni US President Donald Trump, sina Russian President Vladimir Putin at Volodymyr Zelensky. May ilang mga paksa na nasa kasunduan ang patuloy na inaayos ng US para tuluyang magpapayag ang dalawang bansa na tumugon. Ilang linggo lamang makalipas ay nagtipon naman ang mga senior officials ng US at Russia sa Saudi upang pag-usapan ang nagsisilbing unang bersyon ng ceasefire agreement. Sa gitna po yan ng Ukraine at ng Russia. Magugulitang noong taong 2022 nang inulan ng airstrike ng Russia ang Ukraine kung saan sinakop nila ang ilang bahagi ng nasabing bansa.
Inilunsad ng Israeli military ang unang ground offensive sa Gaza simula ng malabag o masira ang ceasefire deal sa pagitan ng Israel at militanteng grupong Hamas.
אני פה בביקור ביחידת המסתערבים של יהודה ושומרון. זה חוד החנית שלנו. חודרים פנימה, מוצאים את האויב, הטרוריסטים משיווי משקלו, מטפלים בהם, ופשוט עושים עבודת קודש למען מדינת ישראל. זה חשוב בכל עת, אבל זה חשוב במיוחד בעת הזאת. כי בשעה שאנחנו מנהלים מלחמה עצימה נגד החמאס ברצועת עזה, אנחנו ערים לאפשרות שיכולה להיפתח פה חזית יותר גדולה ויותר עצימה ביהודה ושומרון.
Dito, bahagyang nabawi o nakubkob ng Israel ang isang key area sa Gaza. Nagsimula ang naturang operasyon 1 araw matapos muling pagpatuloy ng Israel ang pambobomba sa Gaza. Inakusahan kasi ng Israel ang Hamas ng paulit-ulit ng pagtanggi sa pagpapalaya sa mga bihag at pagtutol sa mga alok ng mediators. Sa panig naman ng Hamas, inakusahan nito si Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ng pagpapaigting pa ng digmaan at paglalagay sa bihag sa panganib ng walang tiyak na kapalaran. Una rito, nitong Miyerkules, kinumpirma ng Israeli Defense Forces na sinimulan ng kanilang tropa ang targeted ground activity sa Central at Southern Gaza Strip upang mapalawig pa ang security zone at para makalikha ng partial buffer sa pagitan ng Northern at Southern Gaza. Bilang parte ng kanilang ground offensive, pinalawak pa ng mga tropa ng Israel ang kanilang kontrol sa sentro ng NET25 corridor. Base sa datos ng Gaza Health Ministry, simula ng sumiklab ang giyera hanggang sa kasalukuyan, umakyat na sa halos 50,000 Palestino ang napatay na karamihan ay mga kababaihan at mga bata.
Isang foreign national ang nasawi at 5 katao naman ang nasugatan dahil sa isang Israeli airstrike sa site ng United Nations headquarters sa Central Gaza noong Miyerkules. Alamin po natin ang mga detalye ng balita mula kay Leo Velasco.
Itinanggi ng Israeli military na inatake nito ang isang UN compound sa Deir al-Balah sa Gaza. Ito ay sa kabila ng pagre-resume ng pambobomba ng Israel sa Gaza at pag-uutos sa mga residente na lumikas mula sa combat zones. Ayon sa Executive Director ng UN Office for Project Services na si George Moreira de Silva, ang UN compound na binomba ay nasa isang deconflicted zone na alam ng Israeli Defense Forces.
2 days ago, there was a near miss to this premises, Monday, and yesterday the premises was hit and today there was another hit, unfortunately, with these casualties. This incident again is following activities on deconfliction with the Israeli Defense Forces. I want to stress this point. These premises were well known by the Israeli Defense Forces, and they were deconflicted. And you know what does it mean, deconflicting? It means that everyone knew who was working inside the premises.
Ani da Silva, hindi aksidente ang pag-ataking ito.
In my opinion, this was not an accident. It cannot be categorized as an accident. It is at least an incident. What is happening in Gaza is unconscionable. I'm shocked and devastated by this tragic news.
Binigyang diin ni Da Silva na dapat proteksyonan ng lahat ng partido ang mga kawani ng United Nations. Dito anya kasi umaasang civilian population na naiipit sa mga labanan.
UN personnel and its premises must be protected by all sides. The civilian population relies on the UN for life-saving assistance. They are an essential lifeline at the time of utter tragedy and devastation. I renew the UN call for the resumption of the ceasefire, for unimpeded humanitarian assistance to be reestablished, and for the remaining hostages to be released unconditionally.
Samantala, kinundina ni UN Chief Antonio Gutierrez ang trahedyang ito.
The Secretary General was deeply saddened and shocked to learn of the death of a United Nations Office for Project Services staff member when 2 UN guest houses in Deir al-Bala were hit in strikes. 5 other UN personnel were seriously injured. The locations of all UN premises are known to the parties to the conflict who are bound by international law to protect them and maintain their absolute inviolability. The Secretary General strongly condemns all attacks on UN personnel and calls for a full investigation. He underscores that all conflicts must be conducted in a way that ensures civilians are respected and protected.
Noong 7 ng Oktubre 2023, inatake ng Hamas ang Israel na ikinamatay ng may 1,200 mga tao at ikinabihag na may 250. Bilang ganti ng Israel, may 49,000 tao na ang namamatay dahil sa pag-atake nito sa teritoryo. Lee Velasco para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nagpahayag ng kanilang hinaing ang mga migranteng tumutuloy sa isang Costa Rica migrant center. Inilarawan nila kung gaano kasaklap ang kanilang sitwasyon, gayon din ang kakulangan ng tugon mula sa mga otoridad ukol sa kanilang mga petisyon. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Rose Papa Angeles.
Simula noong Pebrero, nakabang na ang Costa Rica na tumanggap ng migrante mula sa iba't ibang bansa na dinedeport ng Estados Unidos. Ang pagtanggap na ito ay bahagi ng kasunduan ng Washington at San Jose na pansamantalang patuloy ng hanggang 200 deportees. Sinasabing kaugnay rin ito ng pag-iwas sa bantang taripa ng US sa Costa Rica. Ang deportasyon ay bahagi ng laban ni Pangulong Donald Trump sa migrasyon na labag sa batas. Ang mga migranteng lumalapag sa Costa Rica ay tumutuloy sa Temporary Attention Center for Migrants o CATEM na nasa katimugang bahagi ng bansa malapit sa border nito sa Panama. Hindi mapigil ang luha, inihalin tulad ni Iranian migrant Aliriza Salimivir ang CATEM sa isang kulungan o hawla at sinabing ipinagkakait sa kanila ang malayang paggalaw sa Costa Rica. Anya, hinold din ng immigration authorities ang kanyang pasaporte.
Here is like a cage. You can see. This is like a cage. Okay. Yes, we are free only here. Finish.
We are so sorry.
Our passport is in boy.
Okay.
Yes, in immigration. I ask to them can I have my passport? Can I have my passport? They told to me no.
Why?
No. Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Para naman kay Russian migrant German Smirnov, karapatan nilang makagalaw ng malaya sa Costa Rica.
Of course, I would like to be free in Costa Rica because this is my right, this is my will. Even if I want to stay here, I will tell to the authorities if I need to be kept here. But they don't give any options.
Samantala, inilalaban naman ni human rights activist Mauricio Herrera ang request for free passage ng migrants na tumutuloy sa CATEM. Anya, paglapag ng mga ito sa Costa Rica, nasa jurisdiction na sila ng bansa kung saan wala naman silang nilalabag na batas.
Presenté un recurso de habeas corpus ante la Corte Suprema de Costa Rica, la Sala Constitucional, por el hecho de que las personas que llegaron a Costa Rica deportadas de Estados Unidos no han cometido ningún delito en Costa Rica, ninguna infracción, ni siquiera una infracción a la ley de migración. ¿Por qué razón? Porque esas personas quizás en Estados Unidos hayan cometido alguna infracción, pero en el momento en que tocaron suelo costarricense, quedaron bajo la jurisdicción de las leyes de Costa Rica. Y en Costa Rica no han cometido ningún delito.
Sa kasalukuyan, tumutuloy ngayon sa bansa ang migrants mula sa Uzbekistan, China, Armenia, Turkey, Afghanistan, Russia, Georgia, Vietnam, Azerbaijan, Iran, Jordan, Kazakhstan at Ghana. Rose Papa Angeles para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Mula Mexico naman po, higit sa 300 Venezuelan nationals ang lumapag sa kabisera nitong Caracas noong Huwebes. Bahagi ang mga ito ng mass deportation na nagaganap ngayon sa Estados Unidos. Karamihan sa mga migranteng nade-deport ay dumaraan muna sa Mexico bago makarating sa kani-kanilang mga bansa. Narito pang report ni Rosel Feria.
Noong Huwebes, lula ng state-owned airline Convisa, 311 Venezuelan migrants ang lumapag sa Caracas mula sa Mexico. Ang bilang na iyan ay kasama sa kabuuang deported Venezuelan migrants na 920 mula sa US. Ilang minuto bago ito, inakusahan ng US ang mga opisyal ng Venezuela ng pagsisinungaling na may nagaganap ng repatriation flights via Mexico ng araw na iyon. Ayon kay Venezuelan Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, ang biyaheng ito ay resulta ng direktang kasunduan sa pagitan ng Mexico at Venezuela. Dagdag nito, malayo na ngayon ang migrante mula sa paniniil at pag-uusig.
Lejos de toda la persecución, lejos de la represión aplicada en los Estados Unidos, lejos de la persecución aplicada a los ciudadanos solo por ser venezolanos o por tener un tatuaje, lejos de considerar a todos los venezolanos como delincuentes, muy lejos de quienes han maltratado a nuestro pueblo. Hoy son recibidos aquí en nuestro país de manera amorosa, de manera cariñosa, solidaria, con un abrazo de hermanos.
Noong weekend, idineport ng US ang hinihinala nitong 200 miyembro ng Venezuelan Tren de Aragua Gang patungong El Salvador. Sa kasalukuyan, nakakulong ang mga ito sa isang mega prison sa kabila ng kritisismo ukol sa legalidad ng proseso. Tinuligsa ni Cabellos ang US at sinabing kinidnap nito ang Venezuelans. Anya, kung sa US nagkasala ang mga ito, bakit kailangang dalhin sa El Salvador?
Ahora, si son del Tren de Aragua y han cometido delito allá, ¿por qué no lo juzgan allá? ¿Por qué no lo juzgan? ¿Por qué tienen que enviarlo en un secuestro a El Salvador? Porque los que están secuestrados en El Salvador, si tienen delito en Estados Unidos, deben ser juzgados en Estados Unidos.
Dagdag ni Cabello, naguguluhan ng US sa pagdedesisyon nito.
Estados Unidos está muy confundido. Estados Unidos dijo que nos iba a enviar al Tren de Aragua y no nos ha enviado a nadie del Tren de Aragua. Alguien está mintiendo deliberadamente en los Estados Unidos. Que arreglen su problema antes, entre ellos. Cuando ellos estén listos, nosotros estamos listos.
Rosel Feria para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Nilagdaan ni US President Donald Trump ang isang executive order na anyay simula ng pagbuwag sa Department of Education ng bansa. Sakaling aprubahan din ng Kongreso, ibabalik ng administrasyon ang pagpapatakbo ng edukasyon sa kani-kanyang estado. Si Jessica Bautista para sa detalye.
Noong Huwebes, pinirmahan ni Pangulong Donald Trump ang executive order na naglalayong buwagin ang Federal Department of Education. Isa itong pagtupad sa pangako ng Pangulo sa kapwa nito conservatives. Batay sa order, ililipat na sa kamay ng bawat estado at local boards ang pagpapatakbo ng mga paaralan. Isang hakbang na sinasabing umaalarma sa liberal education advocates. Sa seremonya ng paglagda, sinabi ng Pangulo na umpisa na ito ng pagbuwag sa ahensya. Anya, gagana ang planong ito lalo na para sa mga guro at mga magulang.
But we're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs, and this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work. And we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special. And
Dinetalye ni Trump kung paanong napakalaki ng salaping nagagastos ng ahensya, subalit kulelat naman ang mga estudyante ng bansa pagdating sa pamantayan ng tagumpay.
After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close, but yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time, and it employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C. And as a former real estate person, I will tell you, I ride through the streets of Washington and it says Department of Education, Department of Education. I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years.
Sinundan ng order ang anunsyo ng ahensya, kamakailan ng sisisantihin nito ang halos kalahati ng staff nito. Ang tangkang pagbuwag sa ahensya ay ang pinakabagong hagbang ni Trump sa misyon nitong baguhin ang hugis ng gobyerno at wakasan ang burokrasya. Dagdag ni Trump, gagawin ng kanyang administrasyon ang lahat ng legal na paraan upang sarhan ang ahensya sa lalong madaling panahon.
But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good. We want to return our students to the states where just some of the governors here are so happy about this. They want education to come back to them, to come back to the states, and they're going to do a phenomenal job.
Ang pagbuwag ng Education Department ay nangangailangan ng pagsang-ayon ng Kongreso. Sa ngayon, kulang ang boto ng Pangulo para dito. Jessica Bautista para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Sinabi ng White House ay pagpapatuloy nito ang sinimulang mass deportation ng undocumented migrants. Inilmahan din ito ang pasya ng isang judge na kumontra sa nakaraang deportasyon ng Venezuelan migrants. Ayon po sa White House, inaaga umano ng judge ang otoridad ni US President Donald Trump na gawin ang kanyang trabaho. Terilyn Cunanan para sa balitang yan.
Noong Sabado, sa isang proklamasyon, inapila ni Pangulong Donald Trump ang 1798 Alien Enemies Act upang agarang maipa-deport ang sinasabi ng White House na mga miyembro ng Venezuelan gang na Tren de Aragua. Ginamit ng administrasyon ang otoridad nito na i-deport ang 137 Venezuelans patungong El Salvador noong Sabado. Ito ay sa kabila ng pag-uutos ng isang judge na huwag ituloy ang pagdi-deport. Kaugnay nito, sinabi ni White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt na hindi ihihinto ng administrasyon ang kampanyang maramihang deportasyon.
Americans can absolutely expect to see the continuation of the mass deportation campaign that has been successfully led by this president, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and also our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Tinuligsa ni Leavitt ang anyay mga hukom na humihilig sa kaliwang partido. Ani Leavitt, susunod naman ang administrasyon sa court orders, subalit ipaglalaban din nito ang posisyon ng administrasyon sa korte.
We have judges who are acting as partisan activists from the bench. They are trying to dictate policy from the President of the United States. They are trying to clearly slow walk this administration's agenda. and it's unacceptable. As the president said last night, we will continue to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts. But it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda.
Tinuligsa rin ni Levitt ang hukom na kumontra sa pagdedeport ng dose-dosenang Venezuelan migrants. Anya, inabuso ng hukom ang kapangyarihan nito.
And I would just like to point out that the judge in this case is essentially trying to say that the president doesn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our American soil. That is an egregious abuse of the bench. This judge does not have that authority. It is the opinion of this White House and of this administration, and that's why we're fighting this in court. And it's very, very clear that this is an activist judge who is trying to usurp the president's authority. Under the Alien Enemies Act, the president has this power, and that's why this deportation campaign has continued.
Sherilyn Cunanan para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ayon sa isang United Nations Commission, ang talamak at sistematikong enforced disappearances at pagpapahirap o torture sa Ukrainians ay katumbas ng crimes against humanity. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Emmy Kapili Taruha.
Batay sa isang bagong report ng UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry, maraming bilang ng sibilyan sa Ukraine ang na-detain sa mga lugar na nakontrol ng Russia. Ang iba naman ay dineport sa Russia. Ayon sa report, ilan sa mga ito ay sinasabing nagdanas ng torture at karahasang sexual.
Many prisoners of war were also victims of enforced disappearances. The victims were often transferred to detention facilities in Russian-occupied territories of Ukraine or deported to the Russian Federation. In these detention facilities, they were subjected to other grave violations and crimes, including torture and sexual violence.
Ayon sa komisyon, ang talamak at sistematikong pagpapalaho at panunorture ng Ukrainians ay katumbas ng krimen laban sa sangkatauhan.
And one of our important findings, a new one, is that the Russian authorities committed enforced disappearances against Ukrainian civilians as crimes against humanity. The Russian authorities detained large numbers of civilians in all provinces where they took control of areas in Ukraine. Victims included local authorities, civil servants, journalists, and other persons they perceived as a threat to their military objectives in Ukraine.
Ayon kay Mose, ang sapilitang pagpapalahong ito laban sa mga sibilyan ay ginawa batay sa tuntunin ng Estado.
Based on our evidence, the Commission has concluded that the enforced disappearances against civilians were perpetrated pursuant to a coordinated state policy and amount to crimes against humanity.
Samantala, ayon naman sa misyon ng Russia sa Geneva, hindi ito magkokomento sa hindi patas na report. Noong Pebrero, sinabi ng International Committee of the Red Cross na 50,000 tao ang naiulat na nawawala sa panahon ng labanan sa pagitan ng Ukraine at Russia nitong nakaraang taon lamang. Binanggit din ang karagdagang kaso ng panggagahasa at karahasang sexual laban sa mga babaeng detainees. Ayon naman sa isang report na inilathala noong 2024, inakusahan ng komisyon ang Russia ng sistematikong panunorture sa mga kalalakihang Ukrainian prisoners of war. Kamakailan, sinabi ng administrasyon ni US President Donald Trump na ihihinto nito ang pagpondo sa programa na pinamumunuan ng Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab. Layo ng programang ito ang hanapin ang libo-libong Ukrainian children na sinasabing nasa poder ng Russia. Tumutulong rin ang programa na papanagutin ang mga responsable sa pagsanggalang sa mga karapatang ito.
Needless to say, it is a matter of grave concern because information and data of this kind even if there can be concerns with respect to funding, but information and data would be material and important not just for today, but for time to come. And I don't know if there is anything more to add, but it is a matter of grave concern if the information and material is lost, because I think that is really like a common resource for everyone.
Emi Capilita Roja para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Noong Martes, nanindigan ang United Nations na hindi ito tatantanan ang mga partido sa labanan hanggat hindi nakakamit ang respeto ukol sa tigil putukan sa Gaza. Jane Catherine Gregorio para sa report.
Noong Martes, dinitaliya ni UN Secretary General Antonio na ang papel ng UN ukol sa labanang nagaganap pa rin sa Gaza.
I believe that the role of the UN is to do everything to convince the parties and to have the international community pressing for three essential aspects. First, for the ceasefire to be fully respected. Second, for humanitarian aid to have access to Gaza in an unimpeded way. And third, for the unconditional release of hostages. And we will not give up on these objectives.
Ani Guterres, saksi ang mundo sa paghihirap ng Palestinians hanggang sa ngayon.
Unfortunately, we are witnessing a situation in which we had an intolerable level of suffering for the Palestinian people with the air raids that killed hundreds of people. We have humanitarian aid still blocked.
Noong Martes, pinuulanan ng Israel ng airstrikes ang Gaza. Ayon sa Gaza Health Authorities, higit sa 400 katao ang namatay dahil sa pag-ataking ito. Kapwa, nagtuturuan ang Israel at ang Palestinian militant group na Hamas na pareho nilang nilabag ang kasunduan ukol sa tigil putukan. Inakusahan ng Hamas ang Israel nagpagwawalang bahala sa kasunduan ng trinabaho ng mediators. Sinabi na ni Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu na iniutos niya ang pag-atake dahil sa pagtanggi ng Hamas sa ceasefire extension sa gitna ng gumuguhong mga pag-uusap. Ayon kay Netanyahu, lalong lalabanan ng Israel ang Hamas gamit ang mas matinding lakas militar. Sa kasalukuyan, hawak pa rin ng Hamas ang 50 sa 250 mga bihag nito mula pa noong 7 ng Oktubre 2023. Jane Kathleen Gregorio para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Susunod, Snoopy Fashion Exhibit magbubukas sa Paris.
TikTok filter, kinundena at posibleng iban.
At Lollapalooza 2025 lineup, inilabas na. Yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik pa rin ng mata ng Agila International.
Sagip Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta, unang sasabak para sagutin ang 25 tanong ng bayan. Ngayong Sabado na, alas 7 ng gabi. 25 tanong ng bayan, Senatorial Point of View.
Samantala pong isinara ang Heathrow Airport sa United Kingdom matapos sumiklab ang sunog malapit sa electrical substation ng paliparan. Ayon sa Heathrow Airport, nagdulot ang sunog ng mass power outage sa paliparan kung saan naging dahilan ito para i-divert o ilipat ang mga airlines ang kanilang flight sa ibang lokasyon. Isinara muna ang paliparan para sa kaligtasan ng mga pasahero at mga staff ng airport. Higit sa 70 bumbero ang rumisponde para apulahin ang apoy. Patuloy namang inaalam ng mga otoridad ang sanhi ng sunog. Inilikas na rin po ang 150 katao sa airport habang mahigit sa 16,000 tirahan naman ang nawalan ng kuryente. Ang Heathrow Airport ay kilala bilang Europe's busiest and world's 5th busiest airport. Ang paliparan ay kaya mag-handle ng 1,351 flights kada isang araw.
Dakong Asya naman naudlot rin ang mga air travel sa Indonesia dahil sa pagputok ng Lewotobi Laki-Laki volcano. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, apektado mga flights ng mga airlines katulad ng Jetstar, Qantas, Virgin Australia, Malaysia Airline, AirAsia at iba pa. Batay sa Indonesian Geology Agency, nagbuga ng 8,000 meters ng taas na ash column ang bulkan na naging dahilan para palawakin pa ang danger zone sa paligid nito. Itinaas ang eruption alert mula 7 kilometers patungong 8 kilometers na siyang pinakamataas na level nito. Inalerto na ng mga otoridad ang mga residente na mag-ingat sa posibleng lava flows mula sa malakas na buhos ng pag-ulan. Noong November 2024, nasa 9 katao ang namatay mula sa malakas na pagputok ng Lewotobi Laki-Laki volcano.
Isang exhibition man po para sa cartoon dog na si Snoopy ang binuksan sa Paris bilang paggunita sa 75th anniversary ng sikat na comic strip series na Peanuts. Ang exhibition na pinamagatang The Snoopy in Style, A History of Peanuts and Fashion ay magbubukas mula March 22 hanggang April 5 sa Hotel du Grand Venu sa Paris, France. Ipapakita rito ang collection ng mga damit na may impluwensya ng nasabing karakter na nagmula sa mga fashion brands katulad po ng Gucci at Uniqlo. Sa nagdaang mga taon ay naging inspirasyon ng comic strip at ang karakter ni Snoopy para sa mga designers and fashion houses dahil sa mahalaga nitong katayuan bilang isang pop culture icon. Noong Huwebes lamang ay naglabas din dito ng isang display kung saan 50 Snoopy plushes ang nakita sa kasuotan ng fashion houses katulad ng Chanel at Hermes. Pagkatapos sa Paris ay muling itatanghal sa iba't ibang paraan ang mga karakter ng patok na comic strip sa ibang mga panig ng mundo hanggang matapos ang taong anibersaryo nito.
Ayon kay Nike CFO Matthew Friend, magandang naging resulta ng bago nilang fast-track shoes. Ngunit bababaan niya ang sales ng Nike sa mga susunod na buwan. Para sa ilang business experts, ito raw ay dahil sa estratehiya ng dating CEO na si John Donahoe na nag-focus sa direct-to-consumer sales. Nababahala tuloy ang mga investors sa performance ng Nike matapos bumaba ng 9% o $11 billion ang revenue ng Nike noong third quarter ng nakaraang taon. Sa China ay mahigit 17% ang ibinagsak ng overall third quarter revenues ng Nike. Kaya target ngayon ng Nike na mag-focus sa China para sa earnings call. Gumawa rin ang kumpanya ng bagong plano na tinawag nitong Win Now Strategy na tututukan ang markets ng Nike sa Los Angeles, New York, London, Beijing at Shanghai.
Usap-usapan naman po ngayon ang chubby filter sa TikTok na nagpapakita na mas bilugang mukha at katawan ng user. Marami ang nagpapahayag ng pagkadismaya, sinasabing nagpo-promote umano ito ng fatophobia at body shaming. Ayon sa ilang netizens, hindi ito simpleng filter lamang dahil maaaring makaapekto ito sa self-esteem ng karamihan, lalo na sa mga kabataan. May mga nagtanong kung bakit ang pagiging payat ay madalas ituring na ideal habang ang pagiging mas malaki ay madalas na ginagawang biro. Gayunman, mas ilan naman o may ilan namang nagsasabing walang masama sa paggamit ng filter. Dapat lamang itong ituring bilang isang anyo ng katuwaan at hindi gawing malaking issue dahil isa lamang itong filter. Sa ngayon, wala pa opisyal na pahayag ang TikTok. Subalit kung lalong lalakas ang panawagan laban dito, Aba, posible pong matanggal ito, kagaya ng ilang controversial filters noon.
Naibenta sa halagang $6.1 billion ang kupo ng Boston Celtics ng NBA. Ito na ang pinakamalaking halaga na nabili mula sa sports franchise sa North America. Pinangunahan ng investor group na si William Chisholm ang pagbili ng Celtics, kasama niya sina Bruce Beal Jr., ang pangulo ng isang real estate giant. Sinabi ni Celtics CEO Mike Grausbeck na isang Celtics fan at lumaki sa Boston ang nakabili ng nasabing koponan. Taong 2002 nang nabili ng Grausbeck family ang Celtics sa halagang $360 million. Mananatili naman si Grausbeck as governor ng Celtics hanggang 2027-2028 season. Ayon naman kay Chisholm na mula pa noon ay diehard Celtics fan na ito. Itinuturing na ang pagbenta sa Celtics ay siyang pinakamalaki sa NBA at pangunahing sports sa US. Nahigitan nito ang NFL team na Washington Commanders na naibenta sa $6.05 billion at ang $4 billion na pagbili sa Phoenix Suns taong 2023. Ang Celtics din ay mayroong 18 championships trophy sa kasaysayan ng liga at tinaguri ang winningest franchise ng NBA.
Inilabas na ang lineup of performance ng Lollapalooza 2025 na binubuo ng mga bigating performers. Ang Lollapalooza po ay isang Chicago-based 4-day music festival na may average na 400,000 attendees bawat taon. Nagsimula ito bilang touring event noong taong 1991 at ngayon ay isa na sa pinakamalaking music festivals sa buong mundo. Ngayong taon, gaganapin ang Music Fest mula July 31 hanggang August 3. Kabilang sa mga headliners ay ang mga female pop stars na sina Olivia Rodrigo at Sabrina Carpenter. Lead performers rin ang ilang rap artists na sina A$AP Rocky, Tyler the Creator at Doechii. Ang pre-sale ng tickets para sa event ay magsisimula sa March 20.
Muling magpapaiyak ang Independent Spirit Award-winning director na si Celine Song sa kanyang bagong rom-com film na pinamagatang Materialists. Ang pelikula ay pagbibidahan ng mga batikang Hollywood stars na sina Dakota Johnson, Captain America actor na si Chris Evans at si Pedro Pascal na gaganap na Reed Richards sa bagong Fantastic Four film. Ang Materialists ay tungkol sa isang sikat na matchmaker na nahulog sa isang magulong love triangle. Matatandaan ang unang pelikula ni Celine Song na Past Lives ay nanalo bilang Best Feature Film ng Independent Spirit Awards, Gotham Awards at nakasama rin sa mga nominado bilang Best Picture sa 2024 Oscars. Samantalang Materialists ay nakatakdang ipalabas sa mga sinehan sa June 13 ngayong taon.
At narito po kami para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako ng mundo. Happy weekend everybody! Ako po muli si Ricky Matay.
Ako naman si Nina Richie Alago Flores na bumabati rin ng happy weekend po sa inyong lahat. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International at para naman sa mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. With tensions rising over the ongoing case of former President Rodrigo Duterte, the Iglesia ni Cristo has spoken out, calling for unity and respect for the country's legal system.
Para po sa mga kababayan po natin, ang posisyon po ng Iglesia ni Cristo ay ito. Kung ano ang tama at kung ano ang nasa mga batas natin, yun sana ang dapat pairalin. Sino mang Pilipino o mamamayan ng ating bansa na may ginawang paglabag sa ating mga batas, dito dapat litisin sa ating bansa.
And the news starts now. With tensions rising over the ongoing case of former President Rodrigo Duterte, the Iglesia ni Cristo has spoken out, calling for unity and respect for the country's legal system. The statement comes amid debates over Duterte's case and whether he should be tried internationally or within the Philippines. Recently, the Iglesia ni Cristo held a rally for peace in Manila, where they urged leaders to focus on solving national problems rather than creating division. Iglesia ni Cristo spokesperson Brother Edwil Zabala reflected on this event.
Nang mag-rally po ang Iglesia noong January 13, 2025, ang ipinanawagan po namin sa mga namiminuno sa ating bansa, at malamang ay naaalala niyo po ito, kapayapaan, pagkakaisa, at unahing asikasuhin ang problema ng ating bansa at mamamayan nito kaysa yung mga hakbanging magbubunga lamang ng awayan at hidwaan. Dahil alam naman ng marami po na ang mga ito pawang pamumulitika lamang. Ang nakakalungkot po ay yung panawagang yun ng Iglesia ni Cristo tila hindi pinakinggan ng mga kinauukulan. Kaya nga po, Kuya Jen, nangyari yung mga nangyayari ngayon. Hindi naman po natin may tatatwa ng sino man. Matindi ang pagkakabahabahagi ngayon ng mga nasa gobyerno hanggang sa ating mga mamamayan. Hindi lamang tayong mga Pilipino ang nakakaalam na hindi tayo nagkakaisa. Ang nakakalungkot, maging ang mga taga-ibang bansang nagmamasid sa kaganapan po rito ngayon sa Pilipinas, alam na alam nila, hindi nagkakaisa. Magulo.
Zabala reiterated that the Iglesia ni Cristo stands firm for what is right and lawful.
Para po sa mga kababayan po natin, ang posisyon po ng Iglesia ni Cristo ay ito. Kung ano ang tama at kung ano ang nasa mga batas natin, yun sana ang dapat pairalin. Huwag po itong pilipitin para umayon sa nais ng sinuman. Hindi po sumasang-ayon ang Iglesia sa anumang hakbangin na hindi naaayon sa mga batas ng ating bansa. Sapagkat ang batas po ang salalayang nagpapanatili ng kaayusan sa ating bansa. Kapag ang batas ay binaliwala, ay nagbubunga ito ng kaguluhan, hidwaan at kawalang hustisya. Alam niyo po iyan.
On the issue of Duterte's trial, the Iglesia ni Cristo maintains that any Filipino accused of wrongdoing should be tried in the country, as the country's judicial system is fully functional.
Sino mang Pilipino o mamamayan ng ating bansa na may ginawang paglabag sa ating mga batas, dito dapat litisin sa ating bansa. Bakit po? Sapagkat gumagana naman ang sistema ng ating hustisya. Hindi po natin sinasabing wag litisin ang dating Pangulo sa mga iniaakusa laban sa kanya. Ang saga ng amin po, nagtitiwala ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa integridad at kakayahan ng hudikatura para pagpasyahan ng ganitong bagay at usapin. Ang mga hukom natin ay may kakayahan po na gampanan ang kanilang tungkulin, na ipataw ang tamang hustisya at pairali ng katarungan sa lahat ng sandali. Kaya, hindi natin dapat isuko ang soberenya ng ating bansa sa iba. Yan po ang posisyon natin.
A legal expert has raised concerns that the Philippine government's decision to surrender former President Rodrigo Duterte to the International Criminal Court may violate the country's constitution. Attorney Alexis Medina, a constitutional law professor, questioned the Department of Justice's interpretation of relevant laws, arguing that by bypassing the judiciary, it could infringe on constitutional protections. Medina spoke during a Senate hearing challenging the government's stance that judicial proceedings are unnecessary in such cases.
Surrender without judicial proceedings might amount to a violation of the liberty of abode that is guaranteed by Section 6 of the Bill of Rights. The liberty of abode cannot be impaired without a lawful order of the court. That's the text of the Constitution. Now, this constitutional protection is a barrier for any government action that would simply compel an individual to change his residence. So to compel a person, to expel a person from his country of residence without a lawful court order by excluding the judicial process might amount to a violation of the liberty of abode. Now, surrender as an option under Section 17 is applicable only in very narrow situations. One is when the person to be arrested has already voluntarily surrendered to the custody of the national government, in which case that negates the necessity of the extradition process. The other option is when the person to be arrested is actually an alien, in which case there's no need to go through the extrajudicial process. It's only a deportation process which does not involve a court proceedings.
Kung hindi pwedeng isuko ang isang Pilipino na hindi pumapayag, hindi naman voluntary, ang ibig mo sabihin, ang iba pang pagkakataon, extradition na.
Yes,
That's the only legal process to enforce surrender to the ICC. I-extradite na kapag Pilipino ka. Tama po ba?
I agree, Madam Chair. Thank you. And extradition is a judicial proceedings. It involves judicial proceedings po.
U.S. President Donald Trump says progress is being made toward a peace deal in Ukraine after his talks this week with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speaking at the White House, Trump announced that the U.S. will soon sign a minerals and natural resources deal with Ukraine, emphasizing the country's wealth in rare earth elements.
And moments ago, I also signed an executive order to dramatically increase production of critical minerals and rare earths. It's a big thing in this country. And as you know, we're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world. But in particular, Ukraine, we're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia. And one of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that. And we spoke yesterday with, as you know, President Putin and President Zelensky, and we would love to see that come to an end, and I think we're doing pretty well in that regard. So hopefully we could save thousands of people a week from dying. That's what it's all about. They're dying.
During Trump's call with Zelensky on Wednesday, the White House says he proposed U.S. ownership of Ukrainian power plants, arguing that American management would provide better protection and efficiency.
President Trump also discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure.
Trump's call with Zelensky followed an earlier conversation with Putin on Tuesday, during which the Russian president agreed to halt attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. However, Moscow refused to commit to a full 30-day ceasefire. Despite these assurances, Ukraine reports that Russia launched more than 150 drone strikes overnight, hitting civilian areas and key infrastructure, raising doubts about Moscow's commitment to de-escalation.
Yesterday evening, another Russian strike hit our energy infrastructure. We in Ukraine face this every day and night, you know it. And despite Putin's words about allegedly being ready to stop the attacks, nothing has changed.
Meanwhile, the two leaders arranged for technical teams to meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to discuss a partial ceasefire.
Our teams will also work towards achieving an unconditional full ceasefire on land. Please support this. Putin must stop making unnecessary demands that only prolong the war and must start fulfilling what he promises the world.
And now, shifting to the Middle East, where tensions continue to escalate. For the fifth straight day, the U.S. has carried out airstrikes targeting Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Take a look. The Pentagon released footage showing American fighter jets taking off from the USS Harry S. Truman, an aircraft carrier the Houthis claim to have attacked multiple times. The U.S. also released video of Houthi-attacked drones being shot down. Overnight, airstrikes hit several locations, including the Yemeni capital Sana'a. where multiple people were reported injured.
American Zionist British strikes, the triad of evil. We will not submit, we will not tire, and we will not give up. We stand with our leader, Syed Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi.
The strikes also targeted military sites in Al-Baida province and the Houthi stronghold of Saada in the northwest. One of the targets in Sana'a is believed to be the residence of Houthi weapons experts.
As a result, the armed forces have escalated their targeting of enemy warships in the Red Sea, including the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and its affiliated warships. This operation was carried out by the Missile Force, the Naval Forces, and the Air Force, using a number of ballistic and cruise missiles, as well as drones. The operation successfully achieved its objectives.
Meanwhile, President Trump has once again warned Iran against supplying arms to the Houthis. He says any further escalation will be met with stronger U.S. action, vowing to continue airstrikes until Houthi attacks in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden stop.
Firing at U.S. military personnel in the region and shooting at our ships and shooting at our drones and putting American lives at risk is not a good way to end this conflict. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that. And so this campaign will be relentless to degrade their capability and to open up shipping lanes in the region and to defend our homeland.
The initial wave of strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. These included terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructure, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. It also included a number of command and control centers, including a terrorist compound where we know several senior Houthi unmanned aerial vehicle experts were located. On Sunday, strike operations continued against additional headquarters locations, weapons storage facilities, as well as detection capabilities that have been used to threaten maritime shipping in the past. Today, the operation continues, and it will continue in the coming days until we achieve the president's objectives.
The Houthis remain defiant, vowing to keep attacking ships in the Red Sea, in what they call support for Palestinians in Gaza, where Israel has resumed military operations after Hamas refused to release more hostages. With negotiations ongoing, the world is watching closely. Will Trump's diplomatic push lead to a lasting ceasefire, or will tensions continue to escalate? As the world waits to see what U.S. President Donald Trump is going to do with proposed tariffs next month, financial markets remain jittery and economists are revising their forecasts. Trump's reciprocal tariffs are supposed to come into effect on April 2nd. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
Economists and analysts are faced with a palette of unknowns, making it difficult to paint an accurate picture of where the global economy is headed. Investment strategist Ross Mayfield says there's not a lot of clarity on how Trump's reciprocal tariffs will work. He says right now, no one knows whether the surcharges will be applied on a country-by-country basis, how they will be applied, or if there will be exceptions. As well, will there be a grace period for countries who want to negotiate a more fair trade environment? And Mayfield says all of this makes investors nervous.
I think we'll get some clarity, but I don't think it's going to be the sort of clarity that investors are really hoping for, so that they can lean into the growthier aspects of the Trump agenda that had investors so excited in December and January.
Globally, central banks in several countries, including the U.S., have decided against cutting interest rates. Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda kept the country's interest rates steady this week, citing uncertainty caused by Trump's tariff policy.
先行きの経済物価金融情勢次第ですが、現在の実質金利が極めて低い水準にあることを踏まえますと、以上のような経済物価見通しが実現していくとすれば、それに応じて引き続き政策金利を引き上げ、金融緩和度合いを調整していくことになると考えています。アメリカの、関税政策、関税の 及ぶ範囲とか決定のスピードのようなものが急速に広がったり、上昇していると感じていますし、4月にならないとわからない、あるいはその後もいろいろ不確実性が続くということで、不確定なところは非常に大きいというふうに思っています。関税がかかるというときに、直接それが貿易を通じて、経済、つまり、生産量やインフレ、物価にどういう影響があるかというメカニズムもありますし、
U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell cited the same reason for declining to cut American interest rates.
Forecasting is always very, very hard, and in the current situation, I just think its uncertainty is remarkably high.
The Fed meets again in May. What about a rate cut then?
Look, I think we're not going to be in any hurry to move, and as I mentioned, I think we're well positioned to wait for further clarity and not in any hurry.
Around the world, there are dark clouds on the economic horizon. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has cut its global economic outlook. Secretary General Matthias Cormann says North America will be hardest hit.
In our simulations, the reduction in growth and rise in inflation will be particularly large in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Another risk is that inflationary pressures resurge and that, as a result, monetary policy will need to remain more restrictive than expected.
Translation: no cuts to interest rates. In Europe, the EU will delay its countermeasures against the United States until mid-April. European Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic says that will give extra time for negotiations with the U.S. Sefcovic says he believes continuous engagement and a positive approach is the best way forward, but he says the EU will respond to any unfairness.
I have always been also very clear with my U.S. counterparts that we will react firmly and proportionally if we are hit by unjustified measures.
While the experts try to decipher the economic tea leaves, the rest of us will wait to see whether our incomes will stretch far enough to cover cost of living increases. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
Heathrow Airport, one of the world's busiest, has been shut down due to a massive fire at a nearby electrical substation. Now, the blaze, which began late Thursday evening, has caused a significant power outage, affecting not just the airport, but thousands of homes in the surrounding area. Take a look.
Flight schedules around the world were sent into chaos on Friday as Britain's Heathrow Airport was shut after a huge fire at a nearby electrical substation knocked out its power. The blaze also knocked out the area's backup power station, leading to a mass outage at Europe's busiest airport and the world's fifth busiest. Heathrow said it had been due to handle 1,351 flights during the day, flying over 290,000 passengers. Some were left scrambling for alternative travel plans at London's main train stations.
It's my favourite city, but I need to be home.
Heathrow said the airport would be closed until midnight. John Strickland is an independent air transport consultant.
To have it out of action for 24 hours is a massive impact for aviation, massive impact for the UK economy. We see particular impact from long-haul flights which are already on their way to Heathrow and had to divert back to either their points of origin or numerous other airports. So some in the UK, some in Europe, some much further afield.
Industry experts also warned that some passengers forced to land in Europe may have to stay in transit lounges if they lack the visa paperwork to leave the airport. Global flight schedules will also be affected more broadly, as many aircraft will now be out of position. British Airways, the biggest carrier at Heathrow, had 341 flights scheduled to land there on Friday. The chaos hit shares in airlines including BA parent IAG, which dropped over 3% in morning trade. Lufthansa slipped 1.2%, while Air France KLM declined 2%.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Na-in love na ba kayo? Yung tipong Cloud9 feeling at napapakanta ng Mr. Dream Boy. Sigurado ako team song ito ng mga umiibig. At ang nagpasikat ng kantang yan, Cheryl Cruz ang ating makakasama ngayon. Bukod sa ganda ng boses at kinang ng kanyang bituin sa showbiz, marami na rin siyang gagawing revelation sa atin lang. Paano naman niya napangasawa ang kanyang bodyguard? Iniiyakan niya dahil kinukurot at pinanggigigilan ng kanyang fans. Yan at marami pang iba dito lang sa Corina Interviews ngayong linggo, 6 p.m. sa NET25.
Together sa NET25.
Glaciers around the globe are melting faster than ever, with the last 3-year period seeing the largest glacial mass loss on record. And that is according to a UNESCO report released today.
Now, 2024, we lost 450 gigatons from all the glaciers together. It was not the most extreme year, but it was ranked number 4 of the years with most glacial mass loss. And if you look at the past years, we actually had like the 5 most negative years on record we did have in the past 6 years. So you see this increasing dramatic glacier loss from year to year.
The dramatic ice loss, totaling 9,000 gigatons since 1975, is expected to continue accelerating and could lead to a flood of economic, environmental, and social problems as sea levels rise, while key water sources dwindle.
We had an increasing loss by glacier ice year by year by year, accumulating in this incredible number of about 9,000 gigatons of ice lost since 1975. Now, this is just a huge number and hard to imagine. So again, if you take the example of Germany, it would be an ice block of the size of Germany with a thickness of 25 meters. That is the ice that we lost since 1975 from glaciers. And so accumulated again, this is about 25 millimeters of sea level rise, or currently a bit more than 1 millimeter each year. Now you might say 1 millimeter is not exactly a lot, doesn't sound much, right? But it's a small number with a big impact. Each additional millimeter of sea level rise exposes an additional 200,000 to 300,000 people to annual flooding.
And we're following a major volcanic eruption in Indonesia. Lewotobi Laki-Laki volcano located in East Nusa Tenggara province unleashed a massive ash cloud last night, reaching over 8 kilometers into the sky. The eruption has prompted officials to raise the alert status to its highest level. The impact is being felt in Bali, with some flights canceled, including those from Australian Airlines. Bali's main airport remains open, but passengers are advised to stay in close contact with their airlines for updates. This eruption comes weeks after weeks of increased activity, and tragically, previous eruptions have resulted in loss of life and mass evacuations. Indonesia, situated on the Pacific Ring of Fire, is home to nearly 130 active volcanoes.
It's going to make life hard. Probably try and get on a plane to Perth or something that I can try and get back to Australia at least, and then, yeah, not too sure. Yeah, we'll work with what we got, I guess.
We don't have another option because we live in Australia, so we have to go to Australia to our house. So we have just one option, and if it's cancelled, we will take another flight, but not today, also tomorrow, but we have to go to Australia.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang unveiled a wave of groundbreaking advancements at the company's annual Software Developer Conference, GTC 2025 this week. From AI chips to robotics and autonomous vehicles, NVIDIA is pushing the boundaries of technology.
Well, we are at a tipping point, finally. For most people, when we talk about robots, and particularly humanoid robots, we think of it as sci-fi, as something that's going to happen far into the future, maybe. We've been dreaming about this for decades, for generations, and it never seems to have panned out. There's been a lot of interest in it in waves. You know, we saw those cool things the Boston Dynamic robots were doing 10 years ago, but they just seem like demos or feats that are restricted to just a demonstration purpose. That's all changed now. Basically, this technology that has come about in the last few years, large language models, being able to encapsulate general intelligence and general intelligence about the rules of something complex like language, we are now applying this to the physical world, what we're calling physical AI. This core technology is going to make it so we can finally create a good robot brain for a general purpose robot. And this now makes it possible. It was the last puzzle piece we needed so that we can actually make general purpose robots and put them out in the real world. With modern AI, with this new form of software development called AI, we can teach these robots, we can have them do things just by showing them examples of what we would like them to do. And so this is where we're helping the most. We're essentially aiding all of these robotics companies, everybody participating in the ecosystem, build robot brains.
Acumino makes a robotic AI that works with universal robot systems to allow entirely new types of tasks that require two hands and can handle very dexterous manipulations across a high mix of work. Oh, there's tremendous excitement around robotics and robotic AI. You have a lot of different technologies coming together. You have amazing advances in hardware in the robot makers, such as universal robotics. You have great work in vision, great work in computation. Large language models are helping. However, unless it can do something useful, and 90% of what people need to have done, you have to touch and maneuver something. And that has to be done reliably. You can't let it slip or drop or crack. Adding this piece into the whole puzzle not only makes it exciting, it makes it useful and meaningful.
So by using this on the NVIDIA platform which we have created, we use GTX to train the robots, and then we use Omniverse to simulate using synthetic data, and then we use Jetson to deploy on the production line so that it can be really used in real life where the productivity and the benefits could be seen. We believe we can save almost 20% of the productive time by bringing this in and create more vehicles, more products, more items, and reduce this wastage in the whole production line. Many times we don't know if it goes what happens. It can be just trash because it could be too difficult to take it back to the point of where it's being done. So the whole wastage of effort, time, resources can be saved by bringing this technology onto the production floor.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.
This program